Testing 1 2. Testing. Uno, dos, tres. Testing 1 2. 1 2. Is that loud now? Okay. Is Matt doing it? I won't be able to say nothing. Hello, Mayor. Good evening.
Before I do a formal, but otherwise, since we're after 6:30, let's say hello to everybody. Good evening. I sure hope you're here for the Boy Scouts Troop 999 meeting. Just kidding. This is Arizona Cardinals support group. Right, George? Oh, my. At least that merciful season's over. A good evening to you all. My name is Al Bravo. I'm the Public Information Officer for the city of Apache Junction. I have been in this post for the last 7+ years, and one of the cool parts of my job is I get to run this class. And so me and Matthew McNulty, who is in the media room here just off the hallway, are going to try to do our best to bring you a lot of information, a lot of folks from throughout the city over the next 3 months, the next 8 classes. But before we get started with sort of the formal part of the class, then I will tell you a little bit more. We're going to have a little presentation from the city manager. You get to meet the city manager of the city. We always like to open the class with a welcome from the chief executive, from the man in charge, if you will, our boss. And he just got elected to another 2-year term, so he's our boss for the next 2 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, the mayor, the Honorable Chip Wilson.
So you hand me the mic. Well, first off, just to let you know, this is, they do record this, so our comments up here are all nicely recorded, and so you can go and view them and even looking at them much later on. So if we say something and you said, but you said, and I said, no, I didn't, and you can play it back and prove to me that I'm wrong. And most of the time I do things like that. But again, I want to welcome you all in the aspect on it. It is something that I think is terrific in the idea, because you will know how, I'm going to say, our local governments work and how things work together. It is so many times I've gotten faced with questions on, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And so many times the aspect is, well, it's just pure, education-wise as to why we don't do something. Or why does it take so long to get something accomplished? And you realize the steps that you have to go through. Some of those steps are set up in requirements nationally. Some of them are by our state legislators. Our state legislators like to pick on us and do different things that makes us go through more jumps and more, I'll say, bridges that we have to go through to get something accomplished. And but it's something that we all are faced, so you understand what the rules are and how we have to go through those to get things accomplished. It is something that I think that you'll enjoy understanding and seeing what's going on. And I welcome you. And above all, if you got questions, don't hesitate to call me. My cell phone, I use the old type. I don't have the ones that you lose yourself in the aspect on it. But it is something that I will answer. I carry it with me all times. And if I'm involved in a meeting or whatever, you leave a voice message, I'll get back with you in it. I am a believer in the aspect is I represent you, and I am voicing your opinions, and the only way I know what your opinions are is when you voice your opinions to me. And it's something that I am very, I'll say, advocates to do, because I think, again, you live in the community, you live in the area, and we represent you and your ideas. And I know we've got some new council members, and they're going through some training in the aspects on it, because they have to learn what we can and we can't do as well. One of the things, I sat back here back in 2006. Mind you, I am from the horse community, and they were addressing some horse issues up here. And I said, you know, you all have to have someone up there that understands horse. And guess what? When you point a finger out, you got 3 coming back to you. So, and that's basically what I was told. You need to run. So in a sense that you'll understand, you know, being involved in where we pick our people that run for, that are appointed to some of our committees. We like to pick people that have completed the class, because it's something that you'll understand. So that helps us pick people that already have gotten some, at least some knowledge, not necessarily full knowledge, but some knowledge of what's going on in the community. I'm going to end it. Does anyone have any questions for me? I know I was addressing some questions that nothing to do with the city, but again, it's I'm proud to be a representative of you all, and I am so proud of being a member of the city of Apache Junction. We moved here in 1990, and the reason why we picked Apache Junction is because of the attitude and the welcoming we got from the community, and I want to continue that on as well. And the first time we came down here was 1978. Little did I know that was the year that we became a city, and I just fell in love with the area. And then when I retired from the military, guess where we moved to? Apache Junction. I thank you. And unfortunately, I got another meeting to run to, so I'm going to bow out in just a few minutes.
This is your last chance. Now everybody gets a chance to ask questions of the mayor. I'm sure Mayor Gallego doesn't get questions all the time in Phoenix. Okay, are we ready? As ready as we're going to be? So, like I said, we are going to have a presentation here in a minute that kind of gets us all started. And then after that, we might take a short break. I meant to do some, regular introductions here right at the beginning, and I didn't get a chance to do that because I was so excited to get it started. I didn't tell you that there's...
The presentation's going.
Oh, it's going. I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you that there's bathrooms right through that door. And that's important because some of us need to take a break every once in a while. So we will take a break after this presentation, and then we'll come back and I will give you a little overview of what this class is all about, a little bit about the city, and then we're going to meet all of you. That's one of the things that I wanted to make sure we do tonight, because this is, at this point, one of the largest, if not the largest class of Citizen Leadership Institute since I've been around. I might have to call Pat Brenner and find out if this is the biggest class ever. This has been going on for 20 years, so we have a great history of bringing things to our citizens. Okay, so is this on a
You can
automatic?
turn it off. I'm going to talk to them a little bit before.
Okay.
So you could just pause it or
We'll
just
just
wait. Yeah.
Okay, so to get us started, of course, again, we get to hear from my direct boss, if you will. He is the CEO, in many ways, of the city of Apache Junction. He has been with the city for 20-plus years, the last 8
Yes. It was.
as city manager, assistant city manager before that, has a long career from Arizona. He's actually an Arizona native from the wonderful Gila Valley town of Safford, excuse me. Went to school in a couple different places, ended up in Texas, worked in Texas for a while before he came back to where he belongs, which is, of course, in Arizona. And we're very lucky to have him as our city manager. So he will explain what that means and how that fits in our style of government here in the city of Apache Junction. So the illustrious boss for me and for many of us, the city manager of the city of Apache Junction, Mr. Bryant Powell.
Thank you, Al, and good evening to everyone. This is a wonderful evening once a year that we get a chance to do this. I always enjoy coming and seeing our residents who want to learn more about their community, and I call it like the university of citizenry, and learning a little bit about local government. Fascinates me that we will have students go through high school, junior high, and not have a civics class, barely even touch. They talk a lot about federal and state, and they hear a lot about that, but don't even really understand the types of things that make us who we are as residents and as citizens. So much of what we think of in government actually is done in these walls. Water, clean and reliable, flushing the toilet, being able to get it to go and be safe, right? Street and roads, traffic signals, our parks, our libraries, public safety, police, fire, code compliant, just animal control. All those things are at a local government level. And for a local government guy, I think that's great. It's unfortunate, and I do know the high school teacher. I say, you got to get me in there every year because we've got to let folks understand, like, these children, they hear so much about so many things that are going on that can strike fear or not strike fear, but it's just a lot of, to me, baloney. And even to my own kids that I've raised here, I've helped them understand, like, hey, don't worry, we've got you. We've got a great police department, a great city, and many cities and towns are set up that way. It's always fun for me also to find out from you all how, hello, welcome. You're good, we're just getting going here. Have moved here in the last couple years. So who's fairly new to the community? Last couple years, okay. So about 4 of you. What about the 5 to 10 year range? How many have been here? About the Eric? 5 to 10 year range? 10 to 20 or 10 to 15, a little longer? Anybody more than 20 years? Okay, how many years? 24? About 24? Okay. 35. So we're getting close to how long the city's been a city. I'll talk about that. And let's see, who was it?
We've been here since 88.
88. That's about, yeah. So we became a city, like the mayor said, in 1978, and as compared to some of our comparable cities next to us, Mesa, 110 years, Gilbert, some of these others, 70, 80, 90 years. We're still in our growing phase. Our sewer department and our sewer itself did not even start till 1996. Our water department, we took, so 2/3 of the city is Arizona Water. Who has Arizona Water? Okay, and then the other third, it's about right, percentage-wise, is Apache Junction Water. So I live off Tomahawk and Baseline. I have Apache Junction Water. So it's a kind of unique thing for a city government to have 2 different water companies. It's how we're set up. So the uniqueness that we are comes from our history. And it is a wonderful history that our community has established about 40-something years ago as far as a city outlining their vision and their goals. So today I hope, first of all, to let you know a little bit about getting to know our city. Some of you are very familiar with it. And then my other goal is to tell you a little bit about the council manager form of government and how we carry out the vision and the wishes and manage a budget. We do not print money. We have to report. It's very interesting how the federal government, the state government hates that the federal government gives them mandates, but of course we don't like it when the state gives us mandates. One of our mandates is appropriate, and that is that each year we present a budget, and we also show what's called our financial documents to the state government. They like to remind us, the state government, that we're a creature of the state. In other words, in what's called the marble cake theory, when a cake kind of comes together as chocolate and vanilla and it mixes, there's really in the United States Constitution only 2 governments, a state government outlined and a federal government with delineated rights. And then all of our states in the United States kind of outline what are the rights to a city that has rights. And so, for example, like if you live in Nevada or in Florida, The county government has much more power, much more ability to do what I would call the basic local government rights. They also tell us what taxing authority we have. So we cannot have an income tax. So if you'll, in Arizona, if you pay your income, we all pay our income taxes, we all pay taxes. They'll notice that none of the income tax comes to the cities and towns. However, we are allowed to have a property tax and a sales tax. And those are typically the three main taxes that are in local government's ability to raise revenue. And then we have what are called user fees, and that's another form of raising revenue. The city of Apache Junction itself does not issue a property tax. We have a 2.4% sales tax. So when you go to Walmart or any of the places in town, you'll notice our tax is about 9.4%. About 6 of that goes to the state government. So you pay your state income tax and you pay your state taxes, and that's a big portion of what they bring in. Another percent or so is for the county tax, goes to the county services. Sheriff, criminal justice system, and many of the services that the county provides. Then there's a 2.4% that we function, police, library, parks and rec, and those services. And that's kind of our world. So I'd like to share now, but I do want to know, what is it that keeps you in Apache Junction for those that have been here a little bit longer? What is it that you enjoy the most about? Huge, right? It's beautiful. We have 2 veterans organizations that are 2 of the most, I would say, strong in the state. Very, very great groups that we get to work with and help us. If we ever need anything, they're right there for us. Anything else anybody wants to share? Yes, sir. The lakes. It's a jump-off point. It's one of my favorite things. So I grew up in Safford, real small town. It's open all the time. It's just nice to be able to escape, right, and go there. Yes?
Just the
Natural beauty, right? Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit our vision, and Mary, maybe you could articulate it, but everything, we call it the Y, right? Everything that's kind of easterly of what we call the focal point, where the old Grand Hotel used to be. If you were to see on a map, you see like the trail, and it used to be the main road before 60 came in the 90s. Everything kind of going north and east is designated as a rural designation. Like, we don't want in our engineering standards curb, gutter, sidewalks, street lights, anything like that. In fact, we're not encouraging any development. And when people come to us in the mayor, we're like, well, we're not going to help you subdivide it. They have to go through a process through state law to make that happen. And we've kind of designated that Royal Palm East and TP North, which is basically, for me, easy to say the Y, basically. Anybody else, reasons why they stay, or maybe reasons why they come?
Just don't want to give up our
Acre and quarter lots, right? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Valuable. Running very, very. Some of my friends live in the Royal Palm area, even some of those lots now, because they're so nice and good size, they just don't find them that much.
Tremendous view of the Super Station.
Yep. Yeah, it's beautiful, right? Anybody else, what attracted you here? Less crowded, yep.
More patriotic, better
Yep.
pride in being American,
Yeah.
and the beauty, and just there's so much that you can do here. It's just peaceful.
Peaceful, yeah. Yeah, we will do all we can to help keep the public. So 2 reasons that really help people have a quality of life. And we'll show some photos here that really help. There's our city attorney. Joel, did you step in something here? Sorry. This is Joel Stern, our city attorney. Yeah, come on in.
Where's Mr. Powell?
Oh, yeah, I'm right here. I live here. Awesome. Welcome. We're just getting going.
Believe everything he says, 'cause
No,
he always tells the truth.
do not believe everything. Test. Joel. Oh, Joel. And Thanks, Joel. And Joel does a wonderful presentation about his role here in a couple weeks, or maybe 4 weeks or so. But we came here. We've lived here for 20 years. We come for the same reasons: enjoy the beauty and the safety. And a big part of who we are is public safety in our community. And I think that goes whenever I talk to some of our officers and some that have worked in other organizations. Our police chief, when you get to meet him, he may talk about this. He's from Tempe. Well, he's from AJ. He lives right on there, but he worked for Tempe for 20 years, and that's where he did his career. And he talks about how different the people didn't treat the police officers the same. They weren't as,
It's a
different.
So,
Okay, Al, let's see how I can. You're going to step out, Mayor. Any more questions for Mayor Wilson? He's got always something going on. He, yep. All right, so this is our quality of life, legendary, and you'll see this is, Lost Dutchman Days, Marathon, and Rodeo. Just a great time of year. And then, of course, our wonderful Superstition Mountains. We are Apache Junction, home of the Superstition Mountains. We've trademarked it. Back today, I just noticed Maricopa County was using our mountain. Get so mad. They're in their promotional. They were talking about, of course, all the great things in Maricopa County, which is appropriate. But then they show a slide of that, basically that mountain. And I'm like, hey, that's in Pinal County and in Apache Junction. So, Lost Dutchman Marathon, of course, our state-of-the-art library. Anybody else been to the library and had a chance? Yep, great. Prospector Park. We're really proud of that area. It's just wonderful lighted area. Of course, some of our trails. This would be fun to, I don't know if I could keep this. Somehow it keeps moving. I want to stop it here. I don't know if I hold it there. So number of acres, it's still going. We have a ton of park acres and open space. We're very blessed to have that. Another asset that came about 10 years ago, Central Arizona College, Superstition Shadows Aquatic Park Center. Anybody been there? Go down the slide I did. I even jumped and got to be a lifeguard. We might want to show that video someday of me being a lifeguard. Has anybody seen that yet? Yeah, that one. Have you seen it? Yeah. Yeah. Maybe you could pull that up. Our most recent investment is actually, darn, I'm going to talk about this one. This is kind of interesting. This was actually paid for by growth, called impact fees. When residents come in, they need to pay their proportionate share of open space. They need to pay their proportionate share of police. They need to pay their fair share. So all the growth that's coming in, they're paying all of the roads and all the sewer, and then also all of the park amenities. And so over the last few years, we've been collecting impact fees, and we've had drainage problems right over here next to Pinal County. And we worked with Pinal County. They were great. They're a great partner. And they said, hey, if you'll deal with this drainage that's been going on, we will allow you to come on the land, build a dog park for everybody. And then we want to maintain it and build them. And it's just been a huge hit. Of course, we already need another one, right? Because everybody wants more. But anyways, it's for me killing two birds with one stone, and it's paid off. And it was paid off through those impact fees. Of course, our wonderful events and our wonderful Parks Department. You'll get a chance to meet Liz Legenbach and their team. We have so much fun at the library and the Halloween Festival and the costume contest. And it's fun to have all those events too. It makes some of that cultural part such importance. Whoops. Yeah, I'd love to take that off, but I just wanted to share a little bit about this, and it's going to go a little too fast. But this area here is south. So over the last 40 years, we have a general plan, and we have been working with Mesa and Queen Creek for many, many years. Mesa used to be a little town of 40,000 people that now is 400,000. It's the 27th largest city. And in the United States, it's still the case that private property rights reign, as they should, right? I mean, in terms of people's private property rights, they get to choose what city sometimes that they want. And so our incorporated limits used to go to Elliott. And about, 7, 8 years ago, not maybe a surprise to some, but maybe a surprise to some, Mesa was just continually growing, starting to get closer and closer to Meridian. And the landowner that's south of US 60, south of Baseline, is all owned by the Arizona State Trust, State Land Department. In 1912, when we became a state, in the Enabling Act that allowed us to move from a territory to a state, and many western states in the United States, the federal government said to those states, we can't manage all the land. BLM, Forest Service, National Forests, tons of it out in Montana, Arizona, Utah, Colorado. But in a big part of the western United States, they said, hey, state government, if you'll become a state and you'll take on statehood, we want to make an agreement with you that if we can turn some of the chunks of land that it's in your state to be yours to manage, and the states mostly say, of course, what else are they going to do, right? They want to become a state. And so there's these departments in all the western states called state land department. And in addition, when they created those, they set those up to be more like, I view them more like a real estate department for the state government. You cannot view those as open space like BLM or national forest or wilderness area. Their purpose in the state constitution by the Enabling Act is to churn to become developed and to become revenue for the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries in Arizona, typically 90% of the revenue that comes in for that goes to K through 12 in a trust. So you may have followed recently that, so that becomes this massive trust that then creates interest that then goes back into the general fund for the state government to help fund K through 12 and also community colleges and also, but not cities and towns, but to the state. Many, many years ago when we became a city, we designated certain areas. So we designated the downtown as a certain area of density. We want some activity. We want some restaurants. We want certain activity in a downtown. But for areas north and east, we want that to be, like I said, rural standard, no lights, no curb gutter sidewalks, not developed. But to the south of 60, it was created, and the reason it was created in a way was because the private property, and this goes back to private property rights, the private property owner, the state land department said, we want it to be designated as a master plan community. Okay, well, with the private property, we can either say, okay, we don't want that, we just want it to stay open. Okay, that's one strategy. Another strategy is, if we do that, what would be an unintended consequence? Unintended consequence would be, well, maybe we'll just work with Mesa. Maybe we'll just work with Queen Creek, and they'll provide infrastructure, we'll provide sewer, they'll do it. There's no law that says that land has to be AJ. And that's how it's set up. And 20 years ago, we designated that area east of Meridian Road in Pinal County, kind of like the Oklahoma Sooners, you know, the Far and Away movie. I don't know if you've seen that, where Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise go out and they put the stick in and they kind of designate an area. Not me or this council, but many years ago, many councils ago, said that area east in Pinal County, we want to work it. We want it to be our stamp of unique growth because Mesa just keeps coming. And sure enough, in 06, 07, there was this decision by the state land department. Do I just go with Mesa or AJ? Are you ready, or do you not want to? Because it was past Elliott, and we haven't grown south of baseline, right? So basically, when you see growth or you see development, once you get to Ironwood and Baseline or Tomahawk and Baseline or Goldfield and Baseline or Idaho, that's it, because that's where the state land department goes. That's their land. They get to choose if they want to annex you, AJ. They get to choose if they want Mesa. So the elected officials said, hey, we want to start working with the state land, and gave me a charge 7 years ago. Let's decide with Mesa and Queen Creek where our boundaries are going to be. And with Queen Creek and Mesa, they were great. Mesa said, nope, we won't come across Meridian, but you guys need to start showing that you can do more than just open space, because if it comes and the developers somebody comes to want to develop the land, the state land department will want to go out to bid, and they will say who can pay for it. And eventually the market dictates. So about 5 years ago, there started to be more interest. In fact, there was interest in 06, 07. Does anybody remember Lost Dutchman Heights? Maybe they were here 20 years ago. Lost Dutchman Heights was a master plan community that went bankrupt after 08, 09 timeframe. But a developer came and purchased about 1,000 acres from Las Vegas. His name was Jim Rhodes. And in that process, he ended up bidding $59 million for 1,100 acres, and then needed to plan kind of that area for AJ. It turned out a year later was when President Bush said it's too big to fail. Remember AIG and all that? Everything tanked. Land value went to 1/3 its value, and over a 5-year period, he couldn't get things going with development. Went back to the state land department. Fast forward to about 2017, new development, new developers were calling on the state land. And so our mayor and council started working with them. So in that process, over the last 2 years, this is a long story, the city council annexed about 8 square miles that met up with Queen Creek, and then it essentially laid the border where Mesa could not encroach on AJ anymore. So Mesa's done at Meridian, and Queen Creek, I don't know if we have any maps to show, but if you can envision Ironwood Road and where the 24 is, has anybody done the 24 in Ironwood yet? So if you go towards Santan Valley, about 4 or 5 miles south of Elliott, there used to be a racetrack out there on state land.
It still is kind of.
Yeah, yeah. So they lost their lease. The state land didn't renew the lease, and so he's picked up shop. But just another 1.5 miles south of there is where our border ends. It's in essence our future 50 years. When people hear things in the news or they say, "Oh, we're going to grow, fill that in," it's going to take a long time. It's going to take, they hear Superstition Vistas and they hear 270 square miles and this will be built. I said, well, if we go at the rate we do, and if we can find water, and if things go the way they could, at an aggressive amount, it'll be 300 years. So I always remind everybody, like, yes, it's starting, we're getting the infrastructure going, but that area has been designated for master plan communities, and so this was our groundbreaking, I guess, is the long story. So this is a photo of the groundbreaking last December, like 13 months ago. And if you drive down there now, you'll start to see a big water treatment plant, sewer treatment plant going in. And again, that'll all be funded by those folks that live there. And anyway, that's what that is. Prospector. So I love this too about our community. We have so many mom and pop restaurant chains. We're not full of places that are where you see everywhere else. And I encourage everyone that we have in our city, go support your small businesses. They're huge. One of our deals, though, with them is that they struggle during the summer months. They really do. And so if you have employees in May, they almost have to cut, because of the demand, we basically double as a city. They have to cut their staff. So they're basically in April, when it turns 90 degrees, have to start thinking about letting people go. So if you do talk to local businesses, that's one thing that they do struggle. This is our community. This is just right over here behind the recreation center. 20-year-old multi-gen recreation center, paid off. And then some of our rustic amenities that are here at the city. And a skate park. Anybody done skating in here? Not me. You did, yeah. It's a fun little park. We are very blessed. This park is on the school district's land, just like our aquatic center. And because we're a small town, and because we just think in general to work together, we didn't have to buy the land. We just have to work with the school district to allow for us to come on it. And so instead of having to spend $1 million, just like the dog park, it's already there, and let's work together. It's part of us anyways, part of the governance. We can this is like if you go to Payson, I don't know if anybody knows Payson, I love Payson, but their skate park is not this. It's not this quality, Same with with all of our facilities. We just got pickleball. Who plays pickleball? That's a new thing, I guess. Racquetball, people aren't playing as much, but pickleball. So we're getting new, we got those this year, and then, of course, who said Canyon? And yeah, it's a big part of our economy. All right. Anyway, getting to know Apache Junction, you all know that. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about my role. Let's see a couple of these here. I pass these, and you guys pass those out. Back in school, I guess, right? So this is an institute. There are a few handouts probably throughout the time, and we'll go through these, and then we'll save a little time at the end for I hope lots of questions. Like I said, I raised 3 daughters here. I have my youngest is a Apache Junction prospector. She goes to high school here, and all of my girls did, and one's at NAU ready to go to ASU. Sorry, Al. And then my other's up at Utah State. We've enjoyed having our children grow up here.
Are you a U of A?
Yeah, he's a U of A. So I like U of A too.
Eric, you went to ASU?
Yes.
Okay, we'll talk slow.
Oh. One of the things I will share about what's neat about our local government, the mayor's serious about his phone. He's got a flip phone, and when people call, he just stops. He doesn't. Bryant, wait. Picks up the phone, and we'll be on our way wherever I go. Do lots of fun things with him, and he was serious about that. He is so down to earth and willing to listen. And like he said, some of the things are big policy matters that do have to come to the 7, meaning the 7 council members to discuss, and we have what's called council direction to staff. And if it changes like a law, like an ordinance, then we have to have the council view it. But there's times that a local elected official just needs to hear some input, and that's what I love about us. And the reality is that most of everybody knows at least one of the 7, I've learned over the years. And they just have great relationships, and in the end, to me, that diversity of the group brings us to a better decision point when we have to make some tougher decisions. We also, like I said, function as an organization. It's not like a business. Sometimes say government should run like a business. I won't say that we are like that. We don't have profit statements. We don't have the decision to, like for example, in animal control, the idea is to reduce, we want adoptions. So it isn't always just to charge as much as we can to get adoptions. It's to actually adopt them and have a good, safe community there. Library fines. We recently followed many others. We just want the books back, and so we weren't making money off dollar fines. We want people to read and become literate. That's the goal. So we do have a vision statement. We want everyone in our diverse community is a diverse community of natural beauty and heritage that offers prosperity, compassion, and forward thinking to its residents, businesses, and visitors. So our council adopted this about 4 years ago, and the mission statement is that we'll focus and invest on the quality of life and planned improvements for serving our residents and businesses and visitors. The council manager form of government. And so the political leadership of the council, like I said, they pass ordinances, they establish policy, they approve the budget, they see every line item, they decide that that's appropriate according to their wishes. And then, of course, we set the vision. So we, every 2 years, have a retreat. It's a term that means we establish that vision. We'll go to CAC, we'll stay inside the city, and I have a time where a moderator comes and we think, okay, well, how are we doing? How are things going? How are things, in terms of the vision? Every 2 years we have a citizen survey that we give them the data to help them know, like, what areas are progressing and what areas are maybe not going where they would want to go. And then there is this piece where they hire. So none of our elections are partisan. That's another thing that I'll bring up at this point. So, of course, they have political inclinations. Of course, they're probably belong to a party. But in our world, a pothole doesn't have a D or an R or an I by it. It just needs to get fixed. And so many things that we do like that. And I love that. But they run in those worlds. You probably have seen that. Every once in a while, the state legislature gets, because it is partisan, they actually have run bills that will force, at the local level, mayor and councils to say who they are, so that so people know who they're voting for. And they've also done that at the school board level. But in both cases, it's never passed. And at this point, I think that's good policy to just avoid that for the issues that we deal with. And what they do is they hire and fire 3 people, main people. Of course, they're overseeing all of us at the city. We have about 400 employees. They have so if you will think of them like the legislative branch, that's the council. They hire a city manager, like Al said. I have a contract with them. It's to live in the city. It's to be basically available 24/7, it feels like. No, not that much. Just kidding. But to live in the city and compensation, and then carry out what the city code says, which is to hire and fire department directors, which is to run the city accordance to their wishes, carry out the code. And my ethic is basically if it's legal and moral, and 4 of them want to do it, we do it. That's it. That's the bottom line of what a city managers do. And we go and forth, and I don't get in the middle of, well, we shouldn't do this, or we shouldn't if it's illegal, of course, but we don't ever have that. Then the attorney, they hire and fire the attorney, and then the judge. So the municipal court judge that we have just across the way here, he is an employee of the mayor and city council. So my background is very much like this next slide of administrative experience, finance experience. I have a background in finance. I was a budget analyst in San Antonio. I have a master's degree in public administration. And we enforce the law, right? So they decide what the city code says. And then we do it appropriately. And when there are issues, mainly, in my world, we can have times when our employees could be from a customer service standpoint, we're here to serve the residents. And there's times we're all human and we make mistakes. So I get, all of that. Sometimes if someone didn't do it just right, and we follow up on that. So we enforce the laws and the ordinances. How it's beneficial. So I have been here for 20 years. I've been able to go through 2 recessions, one great recession. In 08, 09, I was here. We had to let folks go. We can keep the short-term, long-term analysis going. Because of that continuity, we can raise the flag when things are starting to get like, okay, when we lost in the Great Recession, tons of revenue, we were raising the flag early. And we're on top of it. And so we were able to manage through that pretty well. The other piece that we do is we provide presentations. If you come to a city council meeting, you'll notice I have a city engineer and a building official, or we have a Parks and Rec director. And they provide, and the city code basically says that the city manager and staff will provide recommendations outlined based on their knowledge of the situation or whatever they're in charge of. They are experts, but not perfect. And we make the recommendation, we give alternatives, we give our rationale, and then we kind of just step away and let them kind of work through the issues. And mainly some of them have to do that are really tough that they deal with or is dealing with growth or zoning changes. But ones that they work through sometimes too, like recently, the police chief recently brought an effort to bring in body cameras. And that's an expense, and they have to approve it. Our city code says if it's above $100,000, we go out and bid it. We have to be right on top of our city code with that. And they can decide, hey, we don't want to do body cameras and say no. Even though the chief might say yes, this is a good thing. So that's what we do. The other part that Al and I have a big role in, and many in our staff, is constituent response. We place, like I said, expertise with the experts, and we can help. So council is the ear of the community. They hear lots of trends. We monitor those, and then we can help try to resolve some of those issues that come up. And then the other piece is divisive issues. We'll go into neighborhoods and we'll sometimes help. So just recently we've had some issues with speeding. People have asked, hey, can we get speed humps? And the council has a policy on speed bumps in the public right-of-way. And like a lot of things, the reason why we exist is that it's hard, because if you put speed humps in, I'm telling you, the police chief and the fire chief are going to freak out because the response time and slowdown. So there's always these trade-offs. And so it can be done, but here's the process. There needs to be enough people around, and so we offer that process to the community. We have community engagement offerings like tonight, the CLI. Al Bravo participates in about 17 different community neighborhood meetings, and the council can come to those. We monitor performance, so 911 call, how much time does it take, how many number of calls, what's our response time, and over time as we grow, we can monitor demands for service in terms of if we're now normally able to get to call in 4 minutes, and now we're at 5 minutes, I can guarantee you the chief's like, hey, Brian, I need a few more officers. Then we figure out how much money and can we afford it. So we do work the efforts of performance management and benchmarks. And then the Arizona and the International City Manager Code of Ethics outline for us our code, our moral code, equity, good government, honesty, transparency. Transparency is so important. When we moved over to this new building about 16 years ago, one of the things I really liked are these cameras. It sounds counterintuitive. It's weird sometimes to be on camera all the time and to do that, but what I noticed it changed everything for staff, the residents, our behavior, and then the community, because they were able to see that the systems we have in place. So what the city council, it didn't used to be this way. When I got here in 01, the council had a packet, and the packet wasn't on the internet. We were still, getting going, and there was always a question, well, what do they have up there that we don't have? Well, now, because of the cameras and because of the internet, the packet that you guys see online is the exact same that they have. And so it's just the same packet. There's nothing to hide, and that really helps a lot. But we're a team. We have to communicate often. I work closely with the council. That's mainly my role, to figure out they want to go, their visions, and they get constantly input. I have an assistant city manager. We're big enough now to have, and I was assistant city manager You'll meet him. Well, I'm not sure. We got to figure out a way to bring him in. He was going to come tonight. He couldn't make it. But he is the day-to-day working with the department directors, making sure that we're working as a team. There are tough issues. We used to have a lot of graffiti in the city. I remember behind a few of the buildings a lot. We've been able to get rid of those. We used to have tons of shopping carts everywhere, and we've been able to get rid of that. We're now working on a tough one called homelessness, people who don't have shelter. And I welcome any ideas. It's a tough one. And I know what I don't want to do. I know what we give recommendations of policies, and a lot of it's dictated by state government. But we do want to help our fellow man, and we're trying to get what we can do at the government level to work with our nonprofits to help. We do tremendous efforts in helping those that may be getting ready to go into homelessness, to stay out. It's a huge Herculean effort by our churches, food banks, Genesis Group, all kinds of groups are helping out to help people avoid that. But anyway, I bring that up only because it's something I worry about a lot, and it seems like it's gotten worse the last couple of years. And being here over, like I said, a couple decades. And that's not necessarily a function of Apache Junction. They're going to do another what's called point in time in Phoenix and Mesa, and the big cities, and they're going to probably say another jump. And cost of housing has it, and affordability. And one of the ways to help cost of housing actually is to have more housing. By raising the supply in a capitalistic society, the price and demand and that curve goes down when there's more supply. All right, that's all I have on the council manager form of government. Again, I hope that if you have any questions, you can reach out. Anything else before I stop and you guys get a break? I don't know if there's any questions of some of the things you've seen in the city or changes that you've noticed. I am serious about homelessness, though. Yes, any questions? Yeah. There is, it's called the Pinal County, what's the one Heather's in, our staff, and well, formally we belong to Maricopa Association of Governments. Jenny Hoffman, who's on our staff, participates in a homeless coalition. And Alice, make a note, I'll get that link to you and we can show just the work that's being done. That's a formal process. In addition, Pinal County has a similar group that meets, and we would love to have folks participate on that and help. So you can see kind of the things that are out there and we have. Eric, are you on? Sorry, yeah, you may.
We do meet on the first Thursday of every month at the Multi-Generational Center. It's the Coalition for Homelessness in Apache Junction. And more so, it's a bunch of us nonprofits, Genesis Project, the Food Bank, New Leaf, CAFA, Horizon Health, and we are at the forefront of not only trying to keep people from becoming homeless,
Right.
So offering those vouchers for rent assistance or utility assistance or food assistance, that's more aimed to keeping people from becoming homeless. Then we are second tier trying to get some of our services to the homeless community that are living on the streets, whether it's in a car, whether it's in a shopping cart or in the desert. We try to get our resources. I thought I was loud enough.
It's probably getting picked up.
But we try to get some of those resources to that community and in hopes of setting them up with the homeless liaison, which he works out of Genesis Project. His job is strictly to make sure that they get birth certificates, social security cards, VA benefits, social security benefits if they're that age, and they get a mailing address so that they can get some kind of income to try to help get them off the streets and into some kind of housing. The problem is there's not a lot of housing to get them into. And so when you talk about low-income housing or Section 8 or even housing that accepts vouchers from the state level or from CAFA or New Horizon or New Leaf or any of those organizations, there's not landlords that are willing to work with those vouchers, even though it's guaranteed
money, yeah.
income. They're just too concerned with
And they have demand,
community.
right? They
Right.
could fill their house probably some other way.
Right. So that's the two-part. One, we try to keep people from getting into that situation where they're homeless. And two, we try to get the resources that are out in the community to that, demographic. So, yeah. So we meet 9:30 on the first Thursday of every month at the Multi-Generational Center. And it goes about an hour and a half. And we just talk about different things like community events where we can invite that community to recognize the different nonprofits that are there for them. The homeless liaison, a lot of people don't know that actually exists. And he's got such a great rapport with the motor vehicle division, with the Social Security office. He could walk in and get them those resources quickly. And then, of course,
Does Horizon Health and Wellness, are they on the committee?
they are. So
The behavioral health,
Horizon,
it needs
oh
some-
yeah.
Yeah, good.
So in all of these, literally, it's a lot of organizations from Florence, from Casa Grande, from Apache Junction, all meeting together and just putting our minds together to think outside the box on how can we help. Because really, what it's been is Tempe shooing them to Mesa, Mesa shooing them to AJ.
I call it whack-a-mole.
Right.
It's not right.
AJ shooing them to the desert,
Yeah.
moving them from one piece of the desert to another piece of the desert. And when it boils down, we're talking about humans. That's what we're talking about. And it shouldn't be, let a different city deal with it.
Yeah.
No, let's all deal with it together to come up with a solution. So,
Yeah, Gilbert.
It goes hand in hand.
Oh, you're good.
It goes hand in hand, basically with mental illness, addiction. So it's not just homelessness, it's actually several
It's
things.
very complex issue.
It's very, I don't think, it's very rare that it's, hey, you lose a job, it just happens. Most of the time you get back on your feet one way or another. But when you have a mental illness or an addiction, it just compounds the problem.
And here's the trick, because I will say there's different group, and what Eric's getting at is our community is really great with the community to help folks avoid it and then that type of thing. Where we really struggle, and I think it's part of the issue is once we get into that part that's really tough. We had a gal that was named Martha out here. She would stand in the sun, almost a year or two. I couldn't believe it. And what happens is with the state, as long as she isn't designated, it's called Rule 11. Her hurting herself or someone else, she can't. As long as she's in the right of way, and so you get into some. And she would not even take food. She would, And there's cases like that, right? And
I was shocked when I started working with this group. Some people don't want to change their lifestyle. They love not having,
right.
It's a freedom and,
Okay, yeah, they probably.
Make sure you
Don't hurt nobody on the railroad tracks, right?
Yeah, make sure you don't hit them but yeah, so we have to take our time and go in there and talk to them and explain to them a lot of times why they shouldn't be sleeping on the tracks.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they just don't understand.
Yeah.
And they can see that they're malnourished or during the summer months, they're dehydrated, always drop off water for them, whatever, but we can only do so much. So that's,
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's a big effort. Thanks for getting that information out. We'll get the Maricopa Association of Governments one out as well. It's much more formal, and of course they've got major numbers that we're at a point where we're still a little bit numbers-wise a little bit better.
what's concerning, and most of you might know, our largest growing homeless population is seniors 60 plus. And so that's really, really sad and concerning to me. So we are working closely with that to make sure that we try to keep as many from becoming homeless as possible.
This Genesis project up here, I've been donating things to them for years, since they first started. Save your little toiletries when you go on vacation, bag it up. They have free showers over there, doctors, across from the free food.
Yeah.
They'll take blankets, they'll take whatever.
And it's tricky too, because they come to the multi-gen, and then I hear about it because customers that are paying for their services there get mad because they have to, it's a tough issue. It's a tough one. That's where it gets tough. And so we don't have like a lot of showers, and those types of things. But we want to help those that want to help themselves. And I know that there's every once in a while someone will ask, well, why doesn't so it's funny to me sometimes, like, we don't want a government, right? We want to be free, we want nothing. But then when it's time, it's like, well, why doesn't the city government build a shelter? I get that one a lot, and I'm like, well, it's tough. Then we're in the business of doing that, and once people are grateful, then they expect it and then demand it. And there's models all over the country about that. And so when they get overflow, so what's called the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco, is the court has said if you build one and it's full, then you can't keep people from camping all over in your city, meaning your parks and sidewalks. And to this day, we want to avoid getting to that point where it's that bad. And you'll see in Phoenix just streets that are full of folks, and we want to get people way before that. So, any other questions for me? It's great to know you. I hope you keep coming to or come to a council meeting. What do we do at the end? We have a little presentation, and
A little presentation, and probably in May, everybody gets to come and gets a certificate, gets a nice little group picture with the mayor.
you still get anything, awesome shirts or any swag or anything, AJ.
Yeah.
So I hope that Al takes care of you.
Everybody who gets through the class, if you're good, gets a very nice polo shirt. This is the one from last class. So, we'll leave that one. But go ahead.
Well, thank you. If you have any questions, again, reach out to us, and we'll definitely be right there. I'm your neighbor. I live off Tomahawk Base. I always say, like, right by the dump. It's on the way. And Mount Apache, yeah.
And that place has grown. The streets are already built out there and just east of the dump.
Yeah, so that's the one private land south of Baseline. So there's so if you've been to Baseline and Cortez, there's a subdivision that got platted. It was actually zoned for industrial. And about 6 years ago, the council zoned it to residential. And so now it's all, so they're getting ready to start houses. About 250 or so houses are going to be there, new neighbors. But what's interesting is it's so weird because all the land around it is state land department. So you'll know if that ever goes out to auction, because that'll be a big deal. It's kind of like the one that was out where I told you about the 4 square miles on Ironwood and Elliott, Warner Ray. Just the land sold for $245 million. And I think it's close to, they're going to be into the hundreds of millions already in that. So, all right. Yes, sir.
I live over here on Vista, north of Superstition.
Yep.
And one of our big concerns over there is Weeks Wash. And we've been there for 20 years. And, we really don't want to leave that neighborhood or anything, but it's a big impact in the city too. And I'm sure it costs a lot of money after the cleanups and property values and this and that. And I hear they're supposed to be building a retention pond, or is it going to work?
Well, number one is that he's referring to 2 major, so we're on the alluvial plain of the Superstitions. We get major runoff. And the most recent one this year, we almost lost one of our residents. Ended up being on Channel 15 and all the channels. May even have knew her. I knew the person. It's scary. And we worry about that every year. This last year, and do we have Public Works coming?
Oh, yes.
Okay, Al, I'm going to make sure that they spend some time on it. Let's do some more time on it so you can see how that's going. It's going to be on federal land, on some state land out there, and so we got to work with the partners of the state and the federal government. And it's going to be a big money spend to dig out and do a major. It's in our northeast part of the city there, probably about where that blue dot is. It doesn't help much. And when we have our staff here, they'll be able to show you much more detail where we're at in the planning and the design. And then we're going to have to go out and talk to Senator Mark Kelly and Sinema and Gosar and Biggs to help because it's on their federal land. And we may even ask some of you residents to help us make some phone calls because it's a really big deal. We do have some money. We have some money set aside to help on it and get it started. But we believe in the $30 million range.
Yeah, this was a bad flood this year.
Mm-hmm.
It washed away probably 3 inches of my
Actual property.
back corner 4 of my property.
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's only bad when it rains.
Right.
And,
Well, and one of my big things is we always remember that, right, Al? Come September 30th or October 1st, everybody's like, no more rain, and then it doesn't come back till monsoon season, and then we
Yeah.
need to clear out the washes and make sure. But in big storm events, even we got to have some. It's a huge lift to be able to try to catch it way up there on the northeast part of the city, and hopefully retain some of it before it goes in. You guys have probably, those that have been here, it's tough going when we get a good storm.
there ain't no stopping it either, and it does a lot of damage. And I mean, I just see a little bit of it. I'm on Wickiup,
Yeah.
just north of Superstation between Vista and Wickiup. I got 2.5 acres there, and it was bad this year. So, you know, I got dirt washed away. Just imagine the people's property or buildings and that get washed away and this and that, and they still stay.
You're going to love the presentation our city engineer has, and we've been working on this bigger solution that's been in the works for some time now, that we can start to show design and then engineering and then figuring out payment. It's kind of coming in the next couple years. But yeah. Well, yeah, we had the federal government this year do a study, right? Do a survey out there. All right, thank you very much. Have a great rest of the night.
Okay. Everybody study geography and geology, because that's what this is, right? You're going to learn all about that one of these days. Okay, so this is a good chance to take our break, so let's just do a 5-minute break so everybody can stretch their legs, run to the bathroom, and then we'll come back and we'll finish up for the night, talk a little bit about what you're going to be facing over the next couple months, and then we'll get to meet all of you. So 5-minute break. one of them has been put on hold because the market's really slow. But they are going to do that first group, and I want to say it's either rental homes or apartments, like 100, 150 something. I have to go back and look, but that's what's in the works there. That's a great question because what you consider to be affordable housing is not necessarily what they consider to be affordable housing or what other folks do. And so that's a funny term that we go back and forth on. At this point, housing in Apache Junction is still cheaper than anywhere else in the valley. So does that make it affordable? Well, sorta, but not for our income level, but not for our demographic. Exactly, our income level is lower, so no, it's not any better. So, in the bigger sense, it's affordable in that it will be market priced for us, cheaper than everybody else in town. But for us, it's going to be the same as everything else. Even the houses down south are going to be very, very expensive for the Apache Junction folks. Now, that's not who's going to buy houses down there, and that's not necessarily who's going to buy here either. But you hit on a very good point. I don't know if there's such thing as affordable housing anymore. You have to subsidize it. There's no way. Sure. These tiny homes, there's lots of great ideas. We used to make fun, this whole little movement of tiny homes. We're the tiny home capital of the world out here, right? Right? Can we put some, renovated RVs, renovated, fifth wheels, whatever. Manufactured? Yes. Look, there you go. So, well, Phoenix is just about to convert an old hotel that was run down into temporary housing for homeless veterans. That's a market right? Absolutely. I know. And there's lots. So there's, it's a spark of an idea that has so many, hoops that you have to jump through, right? But that's what it's here for. That's what we're here for. All right, everybody, let's settle down.
All right, I'm gonna head up. I'll leave, but.
Oh,
just
yeah,
to remind
sure.
everybody, This is a great group that, can help you guys, be a part of our, the boards and commissions process. So, like the mayor said, I just wanna make that, and even sometimes folks, don't ever not think about being a city council member too.
Hey,
Because a lot of times election, we have 2 or 3 people running for 2 or 3 spots, and.
we're
sometimes that can help you.
gonna talk about that because 4 of the names up here, right now, were not there a year ago.
Yeah, it's, 4 of them are just a year.
So we will get to that too.
And then Elliot promised he works for the Parks Department.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure he shows on my video. Sometime you can see a lot.
Are you in that video, Elliot?
He,
Oh, okay.
he trained me.
Oh, is that what it happened?
He was there that day.
Okay, I want to make sure everybody signed in. Thanks, Hefe, you take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure everybody's signed in, has a pen or something to write with, gets a schedule, a cloth, and a binder. And does anybody need a fan? If you can show me how to fold this fan, I will give it to you. You don't believe me? Watch me mess this up. Oh, come on. I've only done this about 17 million times, right?
It's that U of A education.
It's that U of A education. Anybody ready? Somebody can get that. Okay. Everybody's back. Very good. Okay. As I mentioned, my name is Al Bravo. I'm the Public Information Officer for the city. So one of the really cool things about my job, in addition to, and you will hear about this later in the class, all the things we do, Matthew and I, in communications for the city, public relations, media relations, social media, websites, you name it, that's what we do. But in addition to that, I get to do sort of some outreach with the community. One is what the city manager mentioned, which is neighborhood meetings. We go around to a lot of the communities throughout the city, RV parks and HOAs and different neighborhoods. We actually probably end up doing more, closer to 20 to 25 of them a year, and do a presentation on what's going on in the city. We also work very closely with our Chamber of Commerce and with our school district and a couple other charter schools that are out there. Our friends in the nonprofit community, we'll hear about them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to invite Mr. Eric to come up later in the class because he's going to talk a little bit about his organization and others like him. But I also get to do this, and this is actually a very important part of my job in a lot of ways because, as I pointed out, there is a connection between you here and the 7 names that are behind me. The Citizens Leadership Institute is, in a lot of ways, a jumping off point for a lot of folks who really want to get involved in the city. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. We have lots and lots of opportunities for volunteers. We will take volunteers just about everywhere. Right, Elliot? Man, parks would love our volunteers. So would library. So would our police department. You'll hear from our police chief later in the class. There's lots and lots of opportunities like that. And of course, there's other groups in the city too. There's nonprofits and there's different, the school district, like I said, and they love that. Well, we also have, of course, citizen boards and commissions. These are essentially advisory groups to the city council, planning and zoning, the Parks Commission, the Arts Commission, the Library Board. There are several of them. Where do you think those folks come from? You're looking at them. And one of the first things that our council looks at when they are appointing board and commission members, which is in the fall, you can write that down, is did you take CLI? Because this is a great overview to learn about your community. Whether you live in the city or not, and I think almost all the class lives in the city limits. There's probably a few people who live right outside, but either work in the city or have some other connection to the city. But if you live in the city limits of Apache Junction, you are eligible to serve on one of those boards if you so desire. And there is an appointment process, there's an application process. But one of the things that is great is if you know a little bit about the community that you are trying to serve. Even if you're not a resident, by the way, there are other opportunities. The Sewer District, the Arts Commission do take folks from the region because of the nature of their job, so to speak. So in CLI, we're going to learn about a lot of different stuff. Over the next 8 classes, you're going to hear, for the most part, from the department directors themselves of the different areas of the city, which includes, like, in 2 weeks when we get back together, we will hear from the finance director, and we will hear all about how the budget process goes. After the state of the city, which I'll explain in a minute, we'll hear from development services, the streets department, and all the stuff. I mean, excuse me, not the streets department, the planning and zoning folks, the building safety. There's a whole section that takes up one night. Roads and utilities, that following week is Public Works, which handles all our streets and street lighting and sidewalks and all of those things, along with water and sewer. That's the next night. Animals and law and order, that's the animal control department. It comes under the police department. Did you know that? There you go. The police department will present that night as well, and I believe that's the night of Judge Lasota, the municipal judge, whose court is right across the way there. The following night, we'll get presentations from our Parks and Recreation Department, our library, and the Apache Junction Unified School District. So you hear a little bit about, what's going on there. And then the final night, we will hear from Mr. Stern, the illustrious city attorney. He's been the city attorney for quite some time. Also our city clerk, and then Matthew will close us up with a little bit of a look into our marketing and communications for the city. So you get a chance to see a lot of different stuff, and like I said, you will also hear from our nonprofit world. We'll also cover a little bit of what the fire department does. Remember, Superstition Fire and Medical is separate from the city. It is not part of the city of Apache Junction. Its area that it covers, though, includes all the way up to Gold Canyon, so it's not just the city of Apache Junction. And one of the things that I always try to remind everybody is to understand what the city is, the city limits, what the city covers. If you live west of Meridian, are you in the city of Apache Junction? Are you even in Pinal County? That's one of the things that you will find out and learn. The city limits and the county limits end at Meridian. So if you are east of Meridian, you're likely in the city of Apache Junction. You're also in Pinal County. If you're on the other side of Meridian, on the west side of Meridian, you are in Maricopa County. Except for this one little area, right? There's 200 people who live right off of the Apache Trail in Meridian. It's a park, isn't it? Just one park. Thank you. Who are city residents and Pinal County residents, or Maricopa County residents, but also, there's even more than that, because there's one little area that's city limit that are city residents that are Maricopa County residents, because we actually have 200 people like that. And then you have county islands, a number of county islands. There's some up off of US 60 that are unincorporated areas but are surrounded by the city. And then there are areas just west of Meridian where people are in Maricopa County, but not in the city, but still have an address that says Apache Junction. So there's lots of funny little areas all around the city. But it's just the nature of how the city evolved. Again, like the city manager mentioned, does anybody remember what year the city became a city, was incorporated? I know you were not born yet, but I was, and so let me tell you, it was quite a time. The city has evolved over time, and has grown like every other place, but not anywhere near at the rate that other cities have, certainly ones in the valley. And again, the city of Apache Junction is very unique in that it is somewhat of a rural community. It is in Pinal County, but really, we're part of the Phoenix metropolitan area, aren't we? And so there are things that you will find as we go forward. For example, we're part of the water area that's designated as part of Phoenix, not as part of Pinal County. And Pinal County has its own water issues. We all do. But we come under the Phoenix one, so we're getting water sort of from a different place, and that's a little bit different situation. Our air quality does not really follow what Pinal County does, although we're supposed to follow Pinal County's rules. Really, we have to worry about the air quality up here because we're right next to the city of Phoenix and the whole valley. So it is a very unique place in many, many ways. And like I said, it has grown very interestingly, not nearly as fast as anybody would imagine. So you can see the city on the left from before incorporated days, probably within the last 60 years. And then you can still see the Grand Hotel from 20 years ago, but it kind of looks like this now. This is just the city campus mostly, but you can see the roundabout in the mountains, of course. And the area that the city manager was mentioning, you will notice still very not densely populated. That's the area that's been designated as only large lot and not dense development. So even new things that go on anywhere out there, they're going to have to be big lots. How many people in the city of Apache Junction? Anyone want to guess? I'll let you think about it for a second, and then I'll show you the little census summary that I worked on so hard in 2020 while we were dealing with pandemic. Guess? Very good point. Full-time residents. Tell me how many full-time residents. If you look right there, you will see the census in 2020 said we had 38,499 people. Now, the funny part about that number is we were all expecting it to say 40,000. We figured it we were, and every indication was we had 40,000. If you go to the Maricopa Association of Governments, which we're also part of, even though we're in Pinal County, we're also part of the Central Arizona Association of Governments. You do the math on that one. MAG says we have 43,729 people as of July, I believe, 2022. That's an estimate, that's a projection, of course, but it also takes into account the city as it is now, which I'll get to in a second. I think the numbers are going to be a little skewed in one way or the other, but I can tell you that we are growing. There are several developments just within the city that probably add up to several hundred units, which can contain 1 to 2, if not 3 people in them. So that number is probably closer to 43,000 for the residents. What is it in the wintertime? Anybody's guess? 70 maybe? Unfortunately, there's no official census for winter visitors. We just have to kind of, estimate. We can talk to our businesses, and we talk to a lot of our businesses, and boy, they're busy in winter, aren't they? And even up to now, but not as much as before, we used to have a lot of businesses that literally would close in the summertime. They would just take the summer off because it was just a disparity. Well, that's not completely sustainable. So the city does realize you need to work on demographics, housing diversity, and its development. Again, not runaway growth like we've seen in other places. One of the biggest reasons why the city has gone after, and the city manager mentioned, the whole annexation, which is what this area is talking about, and where the development of Superstition Vistas, Blossom Rock, and Radiance. They changed their name, right? We'll talk about Brookfield and D.R. Horton later. But they are going to build a lot of homes. They're not doing it overnight. It's going to take 10 years for that to be built out. That's the kind of growth we have said all along. We knew that was going to happen either with us or without us. We could have let Mesa do it. It might have gone a little bit awry. We decided to do it, try to do it a little bit more intelligently. I'm not saying control growth. I'm saying manage growth. It's growth that we can at least make sure we have the infrastructure, make sure we have the water. Water is a big, big deal, as I'm sure all of you have seen and read for quite a while. So up until 2 years ago, there were 37 square miles to incorporate the city of Apache Junction, and like I said, about 40,000 people, more or less. And then in 2019, we annexed the area that's right here. It is between Elliott and the 24, and that's Meridian. And then Idaho would be right here, but the boundary is actually the canal. And the idea behind that annexation was, of course, to say 4 square miles, not 270, because people kept calling my office saying, oh, you're doing Superstition Vistas? 270 square miles and 1 million people. No. It's 4 square miles and probably 25,000 people over the next 10 years. That's probably our best guess. you're going to look at maybe close to 1,000 houses a year over the next decade. That's a little more manageable, and we can find the infrastructure, and we can widen Ironwood Road like we need to, right? And get a little help from the 24. So now the city's 45 square miles. We've grown up a little bit. We're going to try to do our best to incorporate those folks into the rest of the city, but it is going to be a challenge. I will tell you, one of my biggest challenges facing me in communications over the next 10 years is, how do I get all these people to take part in all the things that are going on up here? How do I get them to the MGC? How do I get them to our parks? How do I get them to the library? These folks down here can go right over to Eastmark, can't they? Wouldn't it be interesting? Going to be interesting. So as the city manager mentioned, we broke ground a year ago December, and so they're off and running. This year, I'm guessing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Holly, I'm guessing we will see at least a model home on one side of Ironwood or the other in the next several months before the end of the year. What do you think? Maybe? On the D.R. Horton side at least? Okay. No, nothing like that. 2024 maybe. Nah. Are there other Wildcats in this group? No Wildcats? Wow. Okay. Well, I'm telling you. Let me just remind you all of the original land-grant university of the state of Arizona. So if you look at this map on the left, you can see, like I said, there's the 4 square miles. The west side is being developed by D.R. Horton. The east side by Brookfield Communities, and we're very lucky to have a representative from Brookfield in the class this spring. So we'll meet Miss Holly here later in a minute. Just set the scene a little bit. Like I said, you can kind of get an idea of where we were, and we were in very modest beginnings, even back to 1978. Yes, that was City Hall, and you can still see that because that's where the parks offices are. Just to remind you, again, I know none of you were born in 1978, but this is some of the stuff that was going on in 1978. I never had a car like that. I just like to point out I had a Ford Torino. I always like pointing out that, gas was 63 cents, and if you go down to QT, what is it, $3.45 today? The one that got me, though, is when I updated this slide from last year, dozen eggs 48 cents, I had $1.99 there. It's tripled in a year. And I know because I have 3 teenagers who eat me out of house and home, so there you go. And my youngest, my 14-year-old, the future engineer, reminded me that, yes, the world population has passed 8 billion people. Okay, son. So like I said, very modest beginnings for this city. There was only a few thousand residents at the time. It actually took 3 votes to incorporate the city. They did not want to incorporate right away. And of course, if you go to our friends in Gold Canyon, they don't want to incorporate at all. And then in 2005, we decided that we had been growing enough to warrant some upgrades of facilities, including the building you're in now, which of course is the main City Hall building, built in 2005, and was one of the first government LEED certified buildings in Arizona. New library at that time, the pool in the park that the city manager mentioned, and the rodeo grounds have been developed. And you should all be aware that the city has been in the process of negotiating with the Federal Bureau of Land Management, BLM, you'll hear that a lot, that actually owns the land under which the rodeo grounds and Prospector Park lie. And we are in the negotiations with the Bureau of Land Management to actually buy the land for the rodeo grounds. And the reason for that is because it's on federal land, there are a lot of restrictions to what we can do on that land. So the rodeo grounds and the events that are held there have to be done by nonprofits. There is no profit making in any way allowed. That means you can't have Country Thunder there, or you can't have, some kind of professional rodeo there. You can't have what we have, which is, of course, Lost Dutchman Days, but technically, the Superstition Mountain Promotional Corporation that runs it is a nonprofit. So that could change very, very soon. Now, it's still in process. It's not a cheap transaction, but we've been saving, and one of the things you'll learn when we get to the finances is the city has been saving for a long time. It's actually a very, very good financial position. One of the things that they did with these buildings is they paid for them almost right up front. They did not have to pay off on these buildings for very long. So the rodeo grounds is important. Prospector Park is the big park for the city, of course, up on Idaho and just north of Lost Dutchman. And you will see a lot newer things also over the last 10 years in the city as a result of developments downtown. It started with the repaving of Apache Trail that happened with a special tax. That is one of the nicest roads you'll ever find, and one of the widest roads you'll ever find, of course, and also led to other really cool things like the Fries that we all love now was part of a big swap of land that included Flatiron Park. Flatiron Park was an old rundown two-story apartment, and we got to swap that land for the land that the Fries is sitting on, and we got a new Fries and we got a new park, and everybody is ecstatic, right? And did so with very little debt incurred. Much like the dog park, which, as the city manager may have alluded to, was built with impact fees. That's the fees that we charge for developers. There's a little chunk of their budget goes back to the city, but can only be used for improvements like parks and infrastructure. And so we saved up on that. The dog park, not cheap. Anybody want to guess? Oh, 7 figures, just about $1 million to develop a dog park. Remember, it's also an engineering project as well. That always flooded with every rain that we had, every major storm we had, it always flooded. That has been built in to take all that runoff that normally would be sitting there and get it out of the way. That's a health hazard. We can have West Nile virus going on with mosquitoes there, so it's very important. And of course, everybody loves the dog park because we have so many people who have dogs in our community. There's a couple of them right there. If you've not been over there, it looks really nice. That's a picture I took right after it opened, or maybe Matthew took, or maybe our photographer took. Now that I think about it. Before I go any farther, I do want to mention these 7 people. They sit right behind me every other Tuesday, and that's important for you to know because as part of the requirements of the Citizens Leadership Institute is everyone needs to attend 1 city council meeting and 1 planning and zoning meeting. The city council meets on the first Tuesday and third Tuesday of every month. There is a work session held, not every week, not every month, but the Mondays before city council meetings. The work sessions are discussion nights. They're not voting nights. They are where things are introduced, where things are discussed, and usually a lot of times the first time a council will see something, but will be voted on either that next night or 2 weeks later on the following Tuesday. But I will send you all a schedule for the city council meetings. Like I said, they are the first and third Tuesdays of every month, and I ask all of you to attend at least 1. On the other Tuesdays, the Planning and Zoning Commission meets. Now, that doesn't mean they meet every second and fourth Tuesdays, but they do meet quite often. I will get a schedule for those too, so you can take a look. Now, they are also streamed. All of them are live streamed, much like this class is live streamed, which is why I take the microphone around. If I don't, the people who are listening, and I have a handful of people tonight who could not make it, who are a little under the weather, and we don't want them to be spreading, flu or anything else around here. So I don't mind them staying at home, but they cannot hear if you are not talking into the microphone. So I'm going to hand the microphone around when we introduce everybody. So I will send you that schedule as well. But I mention these 7 people because, as I mentioned before or alluded to before, for the people in this picture, for the people who now sit up there and will sit up there next Tuesday, were not there a year ago. The mayor, Council Member Nesser, and Vice Mayor Schroeder were all on that council a year ago. But in the spring, 2 of our council members at the time decided to run for other offices. The state law says if you're going to run for another office, you have to resign your current office if you're holding one. So 2 of them resigned at that time to run for other offices. One became the Justice of the Peace, Kelly Grummel. So as a result, Peter Hecht, who's in the lower left, and Bambi Johnson, who's on the lower right, were appointed to fill the terms of the folks who stepped down. So they will be in that position for the next 2 years, and they will hold on to those positions. Now, in August, we had an election, and 3 of the council, Mr. Schroeder, Miss Evans, and Miss Rizzi, who was the vice mayor at the time, were all up for re-election. Miss Rizzi and Miss Evans decided not to run again. Mr. Schroeder did, was voted back in, but then that means we have 2 new council members who were also voted in August. That is Brian Solar, who's on the upper left, and Darrell Cross, who's on the upper right. So you have literally four new council members who were not seated a year ago. That makes for an interesting dynamic because that means, things can look a little different. And these are the folks who set the policy for this city. They're the ones that say, we want it run this way, and the staff carries that out. So a very interesting time to be at the city of Apache Junction from a staff standpoint, certainly, because it is a different group. They may have some different ideas. They may want to go a little different direction. We know that a couple of them really have some very strong feelings about certain issues in the city. Growth being just one, there are many, many others. And so we will see how this goes. And so like the city manager mentioned, later this spring, the 7 will get together in a room over at Central Arizona College, and they will discuss some of those, big ticket items. There are some big things on the horizon for the city. As we've said before, we cannot just stay put and status quo around here. It's not sustainable. The demographic of the city. It's something we have to take into account when we're looking forward. Everybody loves to say, we'd love to have this restaurant, we'd love to have this business, we'd love to have, the only way that happens is if you get a few more people, because almost everybody looks at when you're doing the market, studies to try to, bring in a business to the city, or you're looking to move your business into the city, one of the first things they look at is how many people are in the city, and then they look at the income level. And that is 2 of our major challenges, because we have lower income and older population. And only so many. Now, like I said, that's why that 43,000 number, that's kind of important. A lot of folks that we talk to say, once you get to 50, that kind of opens up some doors. Well, it does, but that still doesn't completely address our issues with disposable income. Disposable income is still going to be, a concern. But as we grow down south, we may get younger folks. Maybe they make a little bit more money, and that will raise us all up. All boats come up in the water, right? So, ma'am. The mining camp, unfortunately, the folks who own the mining camp did not get as much insurance money that they had hoped for the property once it burned down, and so they decided not to rebuild. So it was their own choice. That was their own choice, and that's not just unfortunate. Too bad, I know. And we know that family; they're very involved in the city. So yes, that's unfortunate because a very well loved restaurant, right? Yeah. There you go. There you go. Again, here's the schedule. You have it all in your binders. What I will do throughout the class is that each presentation that we get that you see up here, I will print off a version of it that you can put in your binder so you have something to relay. No, I'm not going to test you on that. Well, maybe the ASU people I might test. No, that'll be a waste of time. But this is the point to kind of ask questions about the class, in and of itself, because what I'm going to do here in a minute is I'm going to hand this microphone off to everyone in this group. I'm going to hand it off to one, and you pass it along. I'd really like to hear just a very brief, who you are and, what you do, or how you came to be where we are now, but also a little bit about what brought you here. Is there a particular reason why you decided to sign up for the class? I'd love to know also where you saw the announcements about this class, because of course we put it in a lot of different places, and as I'll explain to you when we get to our marketing communications presentation, we have a real challenge in this community. We don't have mass media out here. There's a monthly paper. There's actually technically 2 monthly papers, but a monthly paper in this day and age is, doesn't really help me very much, to say the least. They have a little online presence, so that helps. But I have to tell my own story. I have to tell our story for the city on my own. That means I have to use, our avenues, which is mostly online, the website and social media and, email, newsletter stuff. I would hope all of you will sign up for our newsletter. We have a new newsletter we just started in December. We had not done that for a while. And it's word of mouth. One of the biggest reasons I go to the different neighborhoods is because we got to get the word out, and that's one way to do it. And it's maybe an old school way, but it's an important one because not everybody's connected. When I go back to that slide on the census, one of the things that really surprised me in 2020 when we got out of that is it showed that 25% of the city residents do not have access to broadband. Now, that sounds like, well, you still have a smartphone or you still might have a tablet. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean you're able to do everything that other folks, can do, which is online classes or understanding what you can find through the internet. So, like I said, we have a whole segment of the population out there who's, essentially not connected in the same way. So how do you get to those folks? Well, you got to go and knock on some doors, and that's part of what we're doing. George. So, a very good point to bring up, and that is being addressed. So, with the development going on down south, we've had a couple of companies, finally, Cox and others, who have come up to start to put in fiber in much of the city. Now, that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. Not everybody's going to have access to it right away, but theoretically, there should be better access to folks.
I don't think it's by accident that by the time that CenturyLink and Mediacom started not sharing customers and their prices doubled.
Oh, yeah. It's all driven by the dollar.
Mediacom said, hey, well, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, exactly. And that's mostly because, again, you're in a smaller area. There is not enough competition because there's not enough people to compete for. They can make a lot more money in other areas, so they don't spend as much. So that's why we're really glad to see, at least some investment. Part of, and you'll hear this from our economic development director, part of the challenge of the city is getting people to invest in the city because it's not big enough in a lot of ways and doesn't spend enough. That's why we have, a real challenge on bringing in restaurants or bringing in businesses or bringing in different, amenities like that. So you're on something.
I'm going to quote something that somebody from CenturyLink said to me when I was talking to him. I'm going to keep it PG, not what he said, but keep it PG. And basically, they came to an understanding saying Mediacom can do whatever they want to their customers.
Right. And they don't cross lines, exactly. So it's not a monopoly, but it acts like one, right? And that's part of it. So, like I said, hopefully you'll start to see a little bit of a difference with the new access to fiber lines. That should help speed things up, of course, for those who need that, and also get more access to folks. We try to do our best to, remind everybody that is in those areas they can use the library. The school has a lot of access. There are some opportunities, but you got to know how to ask to get them. So that's an interesting one. Library does hotspots through SRP. The school does hotspots, so there's other ways. Okay, any other questions on the class itself at this point? I'm going to hand the microphone off and ask everybody, like I said, please introduce yourself. Please talk into the microphone so people listening in at home, and I'll try to get a little something from them on the computer. So if any of you do need to watch, do the class remotely, what I do is, you'll see I have my laptop over there. It's a YouTube link that streams our class, and it's just a few seconds delayed. It's a very, very short delay. So you can ask questions in real time. You can absolutely ask questions. What I do is monitor that. If you are watching from home, you have a question for one of the presenters, let me know what the question is in the chat on YouTube, and then I will relay it to the presenter, so we're off and running. Okay, introduce yourself, tell me what you're doing, and at least a little bit of what brought you to the class. Okay, everybody ready?
Yeah, I gotta be first. Well, my name's Yvonne T-Rock. I came out here 35 years ago, January 6th, from Chicago, tired of the gray shine. Went home, packed my bags, sold my house, and I was here from 6 months later, January 6th. I fell in love with Apache Junction and the mountain because of the atmosphere, the small town feel. And I've just been so busy. I just recently retired from 40 years of ICU nursing. And, I've been on the hamster wheel, raising 2 sons in the ROTC out here at AJ. It's a good program. They both run captains of teams, excellent. And they're all grown up and gone now, and I've been retired for a couple years, and it's my turn to do something and give back to my community. When I first came out here, the world ended at Power Road. There was no expressway. The only way in and out was on the trail. It was just, and orange groves were all along, and you could smell the blossoms, and the temperature dropped 10 degrees immediately. It's a whole different world now, but it still has that small town feel. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Hello, my name's John Ponio, and in 1997, my wife and I moved here from Chicago also, and we lived right next to the mountain. And then we joined the Mountain Rangers, the AJ Mountain Rangers back then. We seen that group in this community, and it was a horse group at the time, and we still are. And our whole goal is to give back to this community. We raise funds and all that, and we give it back to the kids in the community. And then I got a job with the city of Phoenix back then. And in 2002, we moved into the city limits. And I live over here on Vista, just north of Superstition. And we're still in that same house. We just love this community. I do everything in this community and that. But I worked in the city of Phoenix for 25 years. And I worked on the fire trucks there. And I drove back and forth 80 miles every day. And, it's a big city, but it just didn't feel right. This is my town, this is my community, and I help the kids here, and I do everything in this town. But, working for the city, it just was like a job. But it was a great job. I mean, the fire trucks, everything there, it was awesome. And I just retired in October, and the end of October, so that gives me more time to volunteer in this community. But I've been doing Lost Dutchman Days for 20-some years and giving back to it's awesome what we do in this community for the kids. And just want to say, you guys are in a great community, so just enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. So George Martinez, been here for 24 years. Came here to get custody of my son, go back to Texas. Ended up falling in love with Arizona, and especially Apache Junction. So I decided to stay here. The reason I'm here now is I have benefited from people like you guys and yourself, sir, that do stuff for their community, and I think it's time now to try and get back. So.
Hello, I'm Naomi Nations, and I've been here 15 years. I actually came from Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, North Phoenix area. Reason I came down here because I work for Banner Health as a software engineer, and they were taking us out of our offices and building one down here where we had to come to Mesa or take the long drive back to Phoenix, back and forth in my SUV Trailblazer where gas was $3. So we decided, there was a couple years ago, Banner let their employees, their IT senior software engineers work from home. So I live right on Idaho and Foothill, right by Prospector Park. I also volunteer, I'm a software engineer for Banner Health, but I also volunteer with the AJPD Auxiliary Patrol, and I'm also an Arizona Ranger, a sergeant. So I've been doing that for a few years now. So, and I think I remember Al from the Glock Pot Under Arrest Chili, the chili cook-off that we did. You're right. So I've been here. I love the place that I live in. A quarter and an acre and a quarter property. I used to live on AZ Goldfield right by the landfill subdivisions, and my husband, he's from Morenci, Arizona. He just did not like the HOA fees and subdivision rules, so we ended up buying a property 2-3 years ago, and it's since doubled. So we're staying here for a little bit longer, but we love the community. It's nice. It's no traffic. Like I said, I work with the police department, and I know Chief Pooley. I know Chief, Lieutenant Parker. I know all the guys there and the local officers. So it was a great time to be volunteering for AJPD. If you guys want to know more info.
Thank you very much for your service. Okay, the Baldwins, go ahead.
My name's David Baldwin, and we moved out here about 3 years ago from Gilbert. I moved out here in '81 from Pennsylvania, but we've just lived here for 3 years. We wanted to get out of the hustle and bustle of Gilbert. We needed an RV garage, and we couldn't have an RV garage where we live, so we just love it out here. And I think one of the questions that you asked is, how did you hear about the class? And I don't think anybody's answered it thus far. But my wife signed me up, so.
And I'm Kathy, I'm his wife. And we both went through Gilbert leadership. So we thought, we just did some research, found out AJ has leadership class. So we decided we wanted to learn more about AJ. I do volunteer at Genesis 1 day a week and love that. But yeah, we just love it out here. We're really happy to be here and excited to get to know some of our fellow AJians and learn more about our community.
Apache Junctionites? Apache Junctionins? How do we?
We did a contest in Gilbert because Gilbert didn't know what to call themselves, and it
Gilbertians?
Gilbertonians won.
Gilbertonians?
Yeah,
seems like
so I don't know, maybe AJ needs to have a,
we may need to do something with
yeah.
that. Elliot, let's get on that. Well, we are prospectors. Good point, actually. So who runs the Gilbert leadership class, out of curiosity?
The Gilbert Chamber.
The chamber. Was it Kathy Tilkey, or who was it at the time?
Who was running it? Kathy was still involved.
Because she went to the council. She's on their council now.
Yeah, Adrian.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, our class is much better than theirs. No, I know Kathy well, so don't worry. Elliot.
Alrighty, my name's Elliot. I actually work in the city. I work in the Parks and Recreation Department, so if you do visit the Multi-Generational Center, you probably see me there. Or if you visit the pool over the summer, I also work at the pool over the summer. Started here about a year and 8 months ago. Really enjoyed it. And I'm hoping to make a full career out of this, so got another 28 years to go. And I like the community a lot. When I was looking for a municipality to start my career with, I wanted a department and I wanted a city who had your back and who wanted good programming for the community, and that's exactly what Apache Junction does. So other than that, I did find this through a city email that we got, just encouraging people who wanted to learn more about other departments and how everything operates. Because even though I'm part of Parks and Recreation, it all serves a greater good, and the more that I know about the other departments, the more that we can do to better serve the community.
And I think, our city has grown enough now that, you could be in parks and not really have a lot of interaction with some of the other departments. So it's I'm really thrilled. Elliot and one of his coworkers are both signed up, and so we'll see her in the class in future nights. All right, we continue on.
I'm Betty Pye, and I've lived here for 5 years. We lived in Glendale for about 20 years, and we moved over here because my grandchildren seem to be on this side of town. And I've worked probably for the last 20 years for a foreign language service, and we provide interpreters for cities and jails and businesses and anything, Banner Health and a lot of other places. And it's a very fast-paced job. It's really intense, and it can get very stressful. So I figured I better retire, but I've thought I would like to do something for the community, so I'm coming to check it out and see if I have anything that the community can use. I used to give blood, but it was getting so old now, I thought I better not kill anybody by giving blood. So I thought I better find something else to do. And I actually heard about the class on Apache Junction 411.
Suavecito. Anybody habla español? No, habla español, George? Poquito. Vamos a hablar en español. Believe it or not, the city manager actually speaks beautiful Spanish. He's very good. Okay.
Hi. I'm Joan Malm. I arrived in Apache Junction in 2012, and I'm from Garden Grove, California.
Orange County.
About a walking distance to Disneyland. I was quite involved with my city there. I worked for the Chamber of Commerce, and I was a commissioner, and I volunteered at the police department for 15 years. So I wanted to know a little more about the city here and what it might have to offer and how I might be able to help serve it. And I love Apache Junction. I have children here. I am widowed. And I'm getting used to the desert. I'm cold now if it's under 70. Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't get cold in Orange County. Come on now. Our city manager actually has a family in Orange County, so I hear lots and lots about Orange County.
Oh, yes. When I first came, I wasn't sure I could handle the heat. But, yeah, that's changed.
I'm Angela Smithson, and I was saying earlier, a series of events kind of brought us here. I was pretty much born and raised in Gilbert. So last summer, we bought a place. I'm on North Plaza, just north of McKellips. My husband's been fixing it up, remodeling. And even though we bought it kind of in the height of all the craziness, I get little emails that tell me it has already gone up in price, $30,000, so that kind of makes you feel good. Especially because I never really pictured myself living in Apache Junction growing up in Gilbert, but I was telling our city manager that when I drive home, because I work in North Mesa, I get to see the superstition. I mean, it is a beautiful drive home. Every day I'm stopping and taking a picture or so. I teach school in North Mesa, so I do like to get involved, and I'm looking for different opportunities. I come from a family that's been involved at different levels and with government things, and so I'm excited. My youngest is a junior. She's finishing up, because luckily she can take that little route to where I go. So she's finishing up her high school. And we'll see kind of what the future holds. But I'm excited to learn a little bit more about the place I'm living.
Can we ask where are you teaching or what
Yeah,
grade you teach?
so
Or?
I teach junior high.
Mhm.
It is the grade that everyone always seems surprised that people actually stick in there. I've only got 5 more years and I can retire, so I'm excited about that. I teach at Stapley Junior High and we feed into Mountain View.
Yep, Lehigh.
That's kind of,
Yep.
yeah, all in that area. And I do love the Little Rascals. This year, I've taught English most of my career. I didn't go to school for that, and I did go to ASU. I didn't go to school to teach, yeah, sorry. But I do have a nephew who's at ASU, finished up his stuff, and he's looking to do med school at U of A. So his family is a little bit shook up about that. We'll see how that goes.
Oh, no, he'd be just fine.
Yeah,
I actually worked for the U of A Medical School for 8 years before I came.
Yes, yeah, well, it is a big thing. But I just opened up, and I'm excited about it this year at my school, they call it the FACS program, Home Ec, Family and Consumer Science program. It wasn't there for many years. It's back because guess what? These kids need life skills. Yes, so we have a shop. We do. We have the cabinetry. My classes, his classes were the most popular classes at school because it's hands-on. They're not sitting in front of a computer screen 24/7. It's been very rewarding this year, coming from teaching English all those years that I never really wanted to teach anyway, but ended up doing it. So anyway, that's enough about me. I heard about this in the newspaper because when I first moved here, I was looking through the newspaper. I thought, what a great paper. It's listing everything that's going on in this city. And the next day, because I looked through and I saw, oh, I know the police chief there. And the next day we saw him at a track meet. And I said, you're here. He said, yeah, and was just talking praises about our new location. So it was fun. Anyway, thanks.
Hello, I'm Jessica, and I don't like to talk, so I've been waiting this whole time, like sitting here nervously. So, I moved here, it'll be a year next month. I spent 20 years in Mesa. So we moved out, kind of wanting to get away from that central area. My youngest son is a senior this year, and he is very involved in theater. I don't know if there's any other theater parents in here, but if there are, you know that it never ends. So now that he's on the end of that, going to college at ASU. Anyway, I have some more time. So I just moved here, wanted to kind of get out into the community and check out the class. My sister took this same class in Queen Creek 2 years ago, and so she had told me about it, and that's why I'm here. So that's all.
Hi, my name's Yvonne Cruiser. My husband and I moved out here in 1988. We opened a shoe repair shop at the Grand Hotel in February of '88. We now do that out of our house. We legally moved it, got city permission to work out of our house. Our kids were raised here. The programs here, the library, Parks and Rec, phenomenal place for your kids to be. Our daughter and son-in-law both worked at the pool every summer, their high school years. Great program. But I took the CLI class 2 years ago. Due to family situations, I couldn't come, so I watched online the entire time. So I wanted to, and through that CLI class, I ended up on the library board for a 1-year term. I'm also now on the Apache Junction Community Development Corporation board, and I've started volunteering at the Chamber of Commerce, who needs volunteers. So I wanted to take it again so that I could come in person, because there is a bit of a disconnect with the online. When people are talking and they don't have the microphone, you can't hear unfortunately can't hear what's going on. That's what happens. So I'm just back here to kind of go through it again, and we really like it out here. We've been in the same house since 1993, so, yeah, long time. We're in an area that we will never
30
get.
years. That's
30
pretty good.
years,
That's pretty
yes,
good.
30 years.
Yep.
We are in an area that we will never get upgraded internet, because they will not.
They won't come.
They won't come. They're not, it's gonna cost them too much.
Yep.
So, we have found an alternative, though, so.
That's good. You will find there's going to be some areas for sewer, which is a little more.
We also don't have sewer.
Yep, and it's cost prohibitive, right? Yep.
Yes, because we live in that area where
Mhm.
there's too many washes. It definitely would not leave our house because it's uphill both ways.
Sure.
So,
That's what happens. That's what
Yeah,
happens.
yeah.
Thank
So, and yeah, we have no plans on leaving AJ.
Good.
Yet, so.
You can't go wrong with parks because
No.
I've been in this business for, like I said, longer than most of you have been alive. And I've been in several different jurisdictions. I actually work for the city of Mesa. I work for Maricopa County. Work for the city of Glendale, longest year of my life. The city has an inferiority complex. I don't understand it. Anyway, our Parks Department is regularly acknowledged as one of the best in the valley, if not one of the best in the state. And it just got another little round of awards from the State Parks Association. I want to make sure Liz mentions that when our Parks Director comes and presents. They literally won 3 awards from the State Parks Association. I don't think another city won more than 1. It is a really, really well-respected and very well-run department, so we're thrilled.
Yeah.
There are people throughout the city who will say, oh yeah, you're going to Apache Junction, best parks department around.
We also have one of the best libraries
We have
in the
a
valley.
great library. We have
Yeah.
a great library.
There are-
And Pam Harrison will come and present as well, and she's fantastic. She
Yeah.
really is. All right, let's keep going.
Hi, I'm Barbara Fitzgerald. I came to Arizona in 2003 from Massachusetts. I came to the Navajo Reservation to teach. I came down here in 2015, moved to Apache Junction. I'm a professor at ASU, teaching in Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College. Yeah.
Where's my listing for the Board of Regents? I need to get some folks.
But I wear University of Arizona sweats, so that's okay.
Boston area, where are you from in Massachusetts?
So west of Boston is Worcester.
Worcester, okay. Not
Born in-
not Worcester.
Worcester or Worcester or something like that, but leave the share off and it's Worcestershire sauce, right?
Go Patriots. All right.
No.
No? Bruins?
Bruins.
I can handle that.
Yeah, okay.
I can handle Bruins. Hockey is fine for me.
Hockey is great. So I heard about you on the the AJ government Facebook page. Signed up through there, and I'm getting to retirement age and am looking for volunteer opportunities and understanding. Western government is different from Eastern government. And so, I mean, I grew up and was educated with what you do with town hall and town meeting kinds of things back east. So I want to understand how it all works as well.
A little different out here. Just a little different. Okay, Eric.
Oh, so I'm tired of sitting. So good evening. My name is Eric Ariola. I moved to Apache Junction in 2017. I bought a home that is older than me, down on Southern in Idaho. So I am literally kitty corner to the aquatic center in the high school area. If you look out my door, there's just all that BLM and the freeway. And so there's no street lights and people go 80 miles an hour down Southern. So thank you. I am the executive director of our local food bank, who is just kitty corner to this building, just across the street, across from the motor vehicle division in the same complex that the new dog park is in. And I love my job. It is, it's a little bit of government, it's a little bit of ministry, and it's a lot of social work all tied into one. And so we get the privilege of helping our fellow neighbors and community members stay in their houses by providing them food and making sure that their families get to eat every night. And when you look at it from that perspective, my worst days at work are still very gratifying. And so, love my job. And I decided to become part of this class. I saw it, Brian Powell had put a message on his Facebook, and he asked everybody to sign up for the newsletter, the new newsletter. And so I think one of the first newsletters I got in my email had the invitation to join this class. And so I grew up, my family is from a small town called Superior, just east of here. And my family, my aunts were part of city council and part of the town. And then I got out of there when I was in the 3rd grade, and I grew up in Mesa. So I went to Carson and Westwood, and then MCC, and then ASU. So you do what any of the good old Mesa kids do. You just make your trek through all of them. And so that is me. I always admired the mountain. I loved the mountain. They just opened the new Peralta Trail Park today or yesterday, this morning. And I laugh because in high school, that's where we used to party. If it wasn't Silly Mountain, it was Peralta Trail. And there was nothing out there when you wanted to watch the comets go by or wanted to go and watch stars. That's where you would go because you could lay a blanket out, look up, and there was no lights from the city, and it was beautiful. And so I hope that that doesn't get lost out there with all the homes being added, but I'm sure some of it's going to be lost. But that's me. I love the mountain. I love AJ. I love being part of this community. I jumped in feet first, and I'm here for the ride.
And we're glad that you're at the food bank.
Thank you.
Very much so. Okay, we keep going. Holly. Oh, good.
So I'm Holly Correa. I work for Brookfield Residential. We are a developer company. I don't live in AJ, I live in Mesa. But I'm here to learn about Apache Junction because we like to spread that to our new incoming residents and builders that build in there. So we like to take part of the city and bring it to our development. So that is why I'm here. So if you guys have any questions about the new development coming up, I'm happy to talk about it and the new infrastructure that's going in right now. We're doing a water campus and a lift station to help that section since it's all state land. But that's why I'm here. And I've been an Arizona resident since 1994. So I love Arizona.
Well, my name's Catherine Meek. I'm a transplant. Grew up in the Portland metro area up in Oregon, and I have seen what bad city management does to a beautiful area. So that's one of my interests in coming here. 5 years ago, I received a transplant, and after that, my husband was about ready to retire, and we came down here to Thanksgiving with my dad in Scottsdale, and he said, hey, the people are moving out of my house that's a rental. Why don't you guys move down here and you can stay there? Scottsdale, HOA. Not anything that my husband and I would ever do. But my husband wanted to retire to the desert, so that got the gears turning. And we started looking around, AJ. AJ's beautiful. It's the right speed. You look at satellite pictures, that's where we want to be. So we bought the house right before COVID. Finally finished moving a year ago, August last year. Well, a year ago, August. The new year has me thrown off. So once we got down here, settled in, it's like, okay, what do we do? Start looking for volunteer opportunities, time to pay back because I'm more able to make a positive impact on society now. And we've been coming to city council meetings for a while, heard about it here, and decided, hey, I need to learn more. find out what's going on, kind of network, see what I can do. And so I'm here.
It's always wonderful to be last. Someone has to be. Let's see. I started coming to AJ when my aunt used to live at the foot of the Superstition Mountains, and we traveled here. The Apache Trail was the only way to get to her house. And when you turned to go up towards your house, there was only the Circle K. I think it's Filberto's now. But there was a Circle K there, and that was it. There was nothing else. And so I'm telling you that that was the very, very, very early 70s. So although I'm only 25, I don't know how that happens. But it was. And so we kind of, and I have other family members here. I have cousins, aunts. When my aunt moved off the mountain, she moved next door to her other aunt down here. And now I have to tell you, I lived in a little place called Baghdad. And in living in Baghdad, you cannot own your own house. Everything
The
is
high
company.
school in Baghdad is called the Sultans,
It
believe it or not.
Oh, no, you're totally right. I was on the school board in Baghdad for several years. So I did a lot of those kinds of things. And then my husband was hurt, and I went to work in the mines. So I learned to drive truck, run heavy equipment, do everything you had to do to put food on the table. And but you couldn't own a house. And my kids went off to college, and they did their thing. And so we decided, well, for tax bread, whatever, so we bought a house. Well, where would you buy it but Apache Junction, where you have family to watch over it? So we came down, bought a house. It's just over there. It's off of Winchester by the Catholic Church. And it's awesome. Wonderful place. I didn't think my husband did a good job of picking, but don't tell him I think it is. And so we've owned that since 2002. And then I decided, okay, now I don't have to support my kids. I went back to school and become a paralegal. And then I was hired by Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to work with their inmate legal services. And so I helped in their, notaries. I used to sue myself because they used to do civil rights motions, and then I would have to then file them. So we sued ourselves a lot. And then when I finally retired just this year from, the sheriff's office, although it was Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and I decided, okay, what do I want to do now? So I became a document preparer, so I can do still notaries and help people with their wills, because Apache Junction doesn't have a lot of that kind of service. And so I usually donate most of it to older people that need to be able to write a will and do that kind of stuff. So I've been helping in the community with those kinds of things. And then I noticed in the paper, The Great Independence, that there was this class, but it said that it was every other Wednesday, starting January 12th. Well, my calendar didn't say that January 12th was a Wednesday. So I tried calling a couple times, and then I finally decided I would just come here, see what this class is all about, see what I can do, if there's anything I can do to help. Like I said, volunteer maybe to help somebody with their wills or whatever. And so here I am.
Well, Charlotte, see, that's why.
Oh, and I forgot that part. I go by Tinker.
You really do go by Tinker. I saw that email.
Yes, I go by Tinker because I was born on my Aunt Charlotte's birthday, and she had already named her daughter Charlotte Lou. And so when I came along, we just had too many Charlottes.
Well, let's get us. We'll call you Tinker.
And
the rest
so
of the
I'm
class.
Tinker. Thank you.
But don't read the newspaper because they get things wrong.
I obviously.
Angela, which newspaper? Did you see it in the Independent as well? Really? Wow. Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to talk. I'm gonna have to talk to Richard Dyer about that too. That's a whole nother story.
Well, I just figured it was another year because when would the 12th be on a Wednesday? So I came here to see. Thank you.
So Mr. and Mrs. Baldwin, you're not the only couple in this class, believe it or not, because Carlos and Feyan Aguirre are online, and hopefully we'll see them at some point. They also have moved from Gilbert, according to this. They sent me a little, like I said, in the chat. Carlos says that Apache Junction is one of the best kept secrets in Arizona, and he's probably right. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who say, let's just keep it that way. I don't mind that too much, but there's times when I would like to tell our story a little bit louder. One of the things you'll learn from our new police chief when he comes and presents is he actually came from the city of Tempe Police Department and worked his way up through the ranks of the city of Tempe Police Department, and actually was the PIO for a short time on his way up to deputy chief, and he ended up as deputy chief, and then we hired him away a little over a year ago. And he does understand the nature of communications, and it is important to let everybody know that, hey, this is what we're doing to keep you safe, and this is what we're doing to make sure that this is as crime-free as possible. And we're lucky because, believe it or not, we have a much lower crime rate out here than really the rest of the valley and a lot of other places, so it'll be interesting to see that. Let's see, we also have Sandy Mikeland online as well. She says she's lived here for 10 years, has been retired, and now is looking for volunteer opportunities. And like I said, we're going to talk a lot about that. When we get to the end of class, like I said, we're going to talk about the nonprofits in the city, not just the food bank, but others, and all of them can really use a lot of help. And if you're so inclined, there are a lot of different opportunities to do a lot of different things that hopefully you will do that. Well, we have come to our, wow, it is 9 o'clock. We try to get out of here at 9 o'clock. I'd like to, if things are going well and we're moving along, we will get through the classes as best we can. But I do know this is our chance to ask a lot of questions, so I'm not going to tell you not to ask questions, because this is your chance to do that. And so if that does keep us a little later, then it does keep us a little later. Okay, in 2 weeks, we will be back in here in the council chambers for our second session. The second session is going to be all about budget and finance and economic development. I know that I said that there would not be any math. There might be a little math. I'm kidding. The following week, the following Wednesday, is our State of the City event. For those who are unfamiliar, every year we hold a night, an event. We have done it the last several years at the Performing Arts Center at the high school auditorium, which is at Southern and Ironwood. And we have a presentation that night. The mayor gives a presentation, a little bit about the city. We do that every year. You are all invited to take part in that. I count that as one of your nights for the class. There are 8 classes. I try to get everybody to take at least 6 or 7, so that does count. And what we do that night is at 6 o'clock we'll open up the gates. We have some refreshments, really good stuff from the Handlebar. And at 6:30 we will have a program that usually goes less than an hour. So everyone is invited to that. I hope you can partake in that. I will send you the city council meeting schedule as well as the planning and zoning, so you can attend those classes. And if anybody has any questions about anything, you know how to find me. I'm on email. My number should be on just about everything that you see, and if it's not, it is online. It's 480-474-5080, so it's easy to remember. But you can usually find me pretty easily, and you can ask away if you have anything. I will make sure to print off the presentations from tonight to give to you out for the next class, and we will all be back here on the 25th. If nobody else has any questions. Tinker.
I just remembered, what are they putting in next to Walmart?
So many people ask. So on the corner of the Trail and Delaware is going to be the first squid restaurant. No, I'm kidding. It's gonna be a dental office. It is gonna be a dental office, right? Yes, Aspen Dental, correct, is what they're building. Now, what you will learn in the next class is you can go online and find out about lots of things like that, because there's a place on our website that shows a lot of the developments that you're wondering about in the city, and you can actually click on them and see what they are, housing, business, all kinds of things like that, and kind of get an idea of where they are. And you'll learn all about that in our next class.
Just a plug for the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
They really need volunteers for Lost Dutchman Days. So if you are looking to get involved, I believe the parade and then some help at the rodeo.
So the chamber does run the parade. That's the Saturday morning of Lost Dutchman Days, which is the final weekend in February. They also run the carnival that happens at the rodeo grounds along with the rodeo. on the actual grounds Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So call Marianne, call Heather. Okay. And they need help. Yeah, they're always looking for volunteers over there too. Yeah, and they do a great job. We work with them very closely. They are the official visitor center for the city of Apache Junction. It's actually run out of the chamber there. That's part of their contract. You'll hear about that on the next class as well, because it's all about economic development. So, all right, if everybody is ready, we will let you all go. I will tell you all to please drive home safely. And like I said, we'll see you in 2 weeks on the 25th. Good night.